What is happening, people? We have one heck of a showdown slate tonight, and it is going to be fun. Chiefs and the Eagles. Wow. Going to be a good game tonight. I think it's going to be a fairly high-scoring game. I have the Chiefs winning this one. Not by much, 28-24. I think it's going to go over the total by a little bit. Could be more. Honestly, though, this game could fully just go either way. Going to be a really fun game tonight, and there's some really interesting spots popping up when it comes to the numbers here. So obviously, if we're talking about most expensive guys out there, we've got Patrick Mahomes, right? 11-2. Definitely think it's a fair price for him. We've got Jalen Hurts at 11,000. Again, these two guys are, such dynamic parts of their offense. I think the pricing overall on the slate tonight is really interesting and really fair. But it does leave some kind of glaring spots. We have to remember that Philadelphia's pass defense is just not good. That's an interesting thing, right? And we're going to have to pay attention to that because I think there's a couple of spots, and you might be seeing one up on the screen right now, where I think it's absolutely imperative we've got to get to some of these guys. I think that the most successful builds for tonight are going to be, heavily weighted to one side or other. I particularly think that like a 4-2 build, and whichever way you're going to build it, and I'm probably going to do both sides because, who we don't know what's going to happen, right? We like to think that we do. We like to, try and surmise that, but who knows if we actually know. So I'm just trying to pull up the DraftKings pricing here. But, right away, we really, really like to see a few things. So number one, A.J. Brown's expensive, right? Which is, and Devonta Smith is $9,000. So you get about a $1,200 discount. But everyone seems to be going to Devonta Smith. And for whatever reason, the actual numbers don't like Devonta Smith as much, which I think is pretty interesting. I happen to like him quite a bit, but I think that everyone's just saying, well, they're going to try and take away Brown, and we'll just go to Smith for the savings. Where, I don't hate that. I do think Devonta Smith is an interesting play just because I think he benefits quite a bit from the fact that Goddard is out. Everyone is going to be going to, Jack Stoll a lot. I just think that they're going to focus a little bit more on Devonta Smith. And it just kind of shrinks down the target share that much more. So, he's showing negative 21% leverage, which is pretty wild. So I'm probably going to be playing Devonta Smith. I just, I have a little bit more. If I'm going to play him, I'll be honest, I would think I would rather probably just play him in the captain spot. But, we'll see where it goes from there. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. So these guys. So Patrick Mahomes has a positive leverage rate right now, which means he's coming up in the optimals more times than he's being owned there, pretty significantly, and most of that is coming from the captain ownership. A lot of people, I think, sometimes will shy away from that just because he is so expensive. They think that, well, that just might be too difficult of a spot to get to, but some of his best receiving options are cheap. just like the fact that you've got Justin Watson at 2,400, who hasn't connected on a fair amount of targets. But a guy like that who's constantly on the field and he's constantly getting targets, hasn't had a game over 10 points. But at 2,400, we don't need any of that on the showdown slate, right? Let's take a look at what he's at. So they've got MVS, I think, is an interesting play. McCole Hardman's been certainly involved quite a bit. I think he's definitely an interesting play if you want to go value. Tony at 4,200, you could. It's just everyone. It's just been the biggest disappointment on the whole year. Kadarius Toney just really, like, come on, man, like, what the fuck. Justin Watson is actually going to be negatively leveraged. It looks like everyone is kind of going there. So if everyone's going to Watson, I'm fine with going to like Hardman for a couple hundred more. I think that's easy enough to fit in. And the ownership, you see it right here, 4% versus 34%. Look, McCole Hardman's a guy that's actually going to be involved in their offense. I like that quite a bit. So I'm fine with going to Hardman tonight over him. Sky Moore, I just don't think I can get there. Hardman is a guy that can break a touchdown. Kickers. I'm absolutely going to kickers tonight. It's going to be a high-scoring game. We've got extra points. 16% positive leverage. Why nobody wants to play the kickers on these showdown slates is mind-boggling to me. Worked again last night with Will Lutz. He was negatively leveraged, didn't matter, scored like 15, 16 points. You just have to play the kickers in some form or fashion. You're going to get more raw points out of most kickers, especially on higher-powered offenses like this. And let's look. Both of these teams' defenses aren't great, right? If you wanted to try and play a defense tonight, I would probably, I'm going to be off defense tonight. I would rather play the kickers. And, at 4,000 or 3,800, I would rather drop down and play someone, like Justin Watson, like MVS, rather than playing the defenses. I just think it presents you with so much more upside. That's kind of where I want to get to. So I think DeAndre Swift is in a really good spot tonight. I think that they're going to want to try and play a little bit more ball control, and keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands. I don't think that they're going to want to get into a track meet and shoot out, just throwing as much as possible. Jalen Hurts has been a little bit encumbered by that knee. So I think that DeAndre Swift is actually in a really nice spot. I think that either the captain or the flex, but I think that he is a very sneaky captain tonight, where a lot of people, tend to stay away from him because, the old tush push down by the end zone, they just go straight to Hurts when they're there. That's fine. I get that. I just think he presents so much upside. Kansas City Chiefs haven't been the best at open field tackling this year. Their tackling rates, around mid-pack to the lower half of the NFL. So I really like that as an option on the Philadelphia side for captain. We'll stay pretty close to him, but Rashee Rice might be my favorite Kansas City captain. I really like Kelsey as well, just based on the fact of, Kansas City or Philadelphia's defense is, one of the worst teams in the league at covering and allowing points to tight ends. So, there's that. You got to think, though, just like everybody, and everyone says it every week, they're going to take away Kelsey and make somebody else beat them. Well, teams never do. So they find a way to get Kelsey open. He ends up getting his, right? But he's also expensive. I think Rashee Rice, who's a nice big body, presents just as good of an option down in the red zone. So whether you can play him at captain, you don't have to play him at captain. I just like the upside that he presents a heck of a lot more Then let's say Pacheco, who's right next to him, but's going to garner, 10 to 12 to 15% more ownership than him. So I think Rashee Rice is definitely one of my favorite plays. Going on down the list, got to get both of these guys in there. Jack Stoll is an interesting option. I think he's a little bit expensive. I get where they had to price him up for, but at $3,200, I might rather just take a stab and play Julio Jones at $2,600. I think that, in the red zone, you're playing Jack Stoll for the red zone work. Or I think another option is you just go play Albert O at $400. I think that those are the areas that I personally am rather going to go to rather than playing Jack Stoll for $3,200. Albert O at $400 just opens up the rest of everything for you. And you don't need him to do a whole heck of a lot at that point, right? So I think that's a good option. We got Richie James, who's going to be back. He's activated off IR. Let's see if he plays. If he does play, I'm very interested in getting to him at $200 for a pure punt to try and jam in some of these other top guys. I think that could be a really interesting situation. He was very involved before he went on the IR. And let's face it, some of these guys, Mecole Hardman, MVS, it's a crapshoot, and you're going to have to mix and match a lot of these guys because outside of Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce and Justin Watson with like his guaranteed 3 to 4 targets, it's really hard to figure out where the production is going to come from and pinpoint where it's going to come from the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiving core. So my philosophy on that is the cheaper you can get, the lower ownership you can get, the more you're going to give yourself to differentiate, especially in a pretty big tournament field. AJ Brown is just about level with the field. His captain rate, basically is saying if you're going to play him at captain, he's getting a positive captain leverage. And I think that, based on his absolute dominance, I think that you kind of have to get the AJ Brown. Playing guys like Albert O can certainly allow you to stack basically whoever you want. So if you want to get Hurts, Brown, and Albert O, and then if you want to play Smith with them as well, that's where I like going in a lineup like that. I would prefer to go to DeAndre Swift over Devonta Smith. That's kind of my philosophy there. As far as the Chiefs side of everything, mentioned before, Mahomes, Kelce, obvious captains that you should like. Rashee Rice is somebody that I have, I'm going to have quite a bit of. I didn't see his name in here. I think Jerick McKinnon at his price is a little high, but I think that if this does become a little bit more of a shootout, he's somebody I'm a lot more interested in over Isaiah Pacheco. I know that Pacheco's getting the work. He just is. The Philadelphia run defense is just really, really good. So I think that they're going to go and try and spread them out a little bit tonight. I think that McKinnon's a guy that's interesting to get to, but he's at a price point where you see his ownership, no one's going to play him. And I can't really blame people, right? For that price point, I might rather just play Harrison Butker, right, at $5,000, who's also not going to be very highly owned, 15 to 16% max, no more than 20%, even like a single entry or 3 max. That's where I'm at. So again, I think this game goes over the total tonight. I do think that Kansas City will win, but I think that the kickers are going to be very involved again. Lower owned captain plays that are my favorite. I like DeAndre Swift and I like Rashee Rice, both around the same price point. Higher end, I like AJ Brown if I'm going with a high end captain for the Chiefs or for the Eagles. And if it's Kansas City, it's got to be Mahomes. He's got an optimal captain rate of over 22%. You see his captain leverage is 7.7%, and his total leverage is only 2.6. So that means he's showing up in the optimals more in the captain spot than in the flex rate that he's being owned right now. And again, it's because of a price thing. But we talked about it before. Go down and play some of these guys. You can take a shot at Richie James at 200. I think that Albert O is a great option at $400 to take a shot to get some of these higher price guys in there. McCole Hardman at 2,800 is interesting at about 4% ownership. Those are my 4 plays in the real cheap to allow you access to some of these higher premium captains. And that's it. Thank you guys so much. Good luck tonight. As always, follow us on X, like, subscribe, rate, review, drop who your favorite captain is in the comments, and I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Let me get a few comments before I get out of here. It's just Vinmeister. Just the Vinmeister. All right, guys. Again, follow us on X at JJ McIntosh, at Notorious DJL, and at Joey Props. Thank you. Have a great Monday night.